Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and a quick look at who the best Wonderkids are in the new game that has just come out. Now I'm going to do this in a reasonably scientific way rather than just steal from somebody else's list or make them up based on players that I've used or find interesting. The simple way that we're going to do this is I've started a new save and advanced it 5 years into the future. We're then going to have a very quick look at who the best players are from the age of 23 and under so that you know who to sign, because 5 years ago the oldest players in that search will have been 18 years old. So that's all of the possible Wonderkids in the game, and then you can try and pick for yourself who the best players are. So this is the list. As you can see, it's always going to be dominated by the top teams. So Kylian Mbappe, unsurprisingly, the biggest player. You are unlikely to be able to sign him in your game, if we're being entirely honest. He's now worth £74 million, but he's got some incredible statistics. And I mean, he just looks like such a good player, and PSG would be quite a good team to take on and manage this season if you are looking for someone to take over. The next one is quite surprising and not one that I expected. It's Moise Kean from Manchester United. Now, he's a player that I have been reasonably familiar with for a little while in Football Manager. He's 17 years old in this game, but you can see that he has developed some excellent attacking statistics, and as a striker he has grown to £70 million in valuation. I don't know how much he actually is at the start of the game. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments how cheaply you might be able to pick him up. I mean, he's a Manchester United player through and through, so he is going to cost you probably 15, 20 or more million pounds if you try to sign him at the start of the game, but he certainly looks like a great player. And next up is Christian Pulisic. I think most people in Football Manager are familiar with him. He's currently at Dortmund in real life. Chelsea have clearly picked him up. He's valued at £66 million, and Chelsea had to pay £83 million for him just last season in the January transfer window. So you can see his stock has shot up very quickly, so worth getting him early on if you can. Vitor Joaquim, probably the first name I do not recognise from PSG. He's a Sporting Lisbon player, so maybe you can pick him up reasonably cheaply. I mean, he's got pretty good finishing there at 17. His physical stats look quite good as well. Obviously, because I'm not a manager and I don't have perfect scouting and I don't have the in-game editor, I can't really give you the perfect pinpoint stats for each player because they are currently hidden. But just on the valuation alone, some of these players are clearly worth picking up. Pedro Garcia, the next player, currently at Real Madrid, worth £65 million. He is a Real Madrid player, will be difficult to pick up. Felice D'Amico from AS Monaco, another great looking player. He looks like he wouldn't be too much to pick up. Signed for £34.5 million by Barcelona from Palermo, so you can probably get him at a bit of a snip. And he looks like a decent player. He can play across the attacking midfield positions as well, so it'll be useful in just about any formation. Then Dayot Upamecano, who I'm not familiar with. He is a centre-back, first defender that we've seen. Currently at Red Bull Leipzig, moved there for £9 million in 16-17. So you might be able to pick him up. He's probably going to set you back 20, 30 million. Brian van der Steen, 20 years old. He's not a regen. He is currently at PSV, so you could definitely pick him up. He was signed for just £36 million by PSG. So worth having a look at him. Vinicius Junior, another player who has come from Flamengo, I think that is. Real Madrid paid £40 million for him in 18-19, so he's probably going to cost you a fair penny either which way. Pellegrini from Genoa wasn't playing too much to begin with. First season in the game there, didn't really play at all, and then he did get some game time and moved to Man City for £44.5 million. And then you've got Kai Havertz. People who watch my European Journeyman series will know that he's a good player. And Leverkusen actually have quite a few good young players that you can go back to my series last year and have a look at and be able to pick them up. Kai Havertz is a great attacking midfielder for you to pick up. Donnarumma, I think we're all familiar with, worth £50 million. Espinoza, another player that is familiar to me. Currently at River Plate, so you can definitely get him cheap. PSG got him for just £1.6 million, so probably worth dipping into the market for a player who can rise to £50 million. Ignacio Rizzo, currently at Burnley and worth £46.5 million. How's that happened? Was at Boca Juniors, moved to Levante on loan, then signed by Spurs, and then Burnley picked him up for just £6.25 million. Definitely worth a snipe there if you can get the money together. Stoke have Josh Timon, Another player that has developed very, very quickly there, was 18 years old when the game started and was at Stoke. He moved there for an underclose fee from Hull. Spent a bit of time on loan, but then broke into the Stoke first team and has been brilliant for them ever since. Castellani, now at Man United, was at Atlanta before, so you could probably get him for not too much money. Rodrigo, where's he from? He's from San. I'm not actually sure what San is because the game hasn't got full name fixes in it yet. But you can see he's cost a little bit of cash for Arsenal, but not a lot, £13.75 million. So there are players here that if you are managing a team like Newcastle, like I am, you could probably pick quite a few of these players up for not an awful lot of money, especially from South America. Here's another one, Ezequiel Palacios from River Plate for just £5.5 million, and that was last season. You could have picked him up a lot earlier and probably for less money as well. So worth having a look at him. Nastal Laragai, currently at Valencia, no information on him whatsoever. From Boca Juniors, very cheaply, £4.4 million. It looks like South America is the place to raid, as it always is. Although this player, just £2.7 million for West Ham paid for him from a Swedish club, Halmstad. He's then sort of drifted around, but seems to be worth a fair penny now. Even Tadeo, what's he doing these days? Started off at Chivas and moved to Man United for less than £10 million, which in Premier League money is absolutely nothing. Roll Heiser, £41 million now. Another player picked up from River Plate. They seem to have quite a few good young players in their squad. Valmir, the right back. By the way, I'm going through these really quickly because there are so many of them, so do pause on any of the screens if you want to see their stats in more details. He's from Grêmio, I think, in Brazil. I've probably just butchered that name. But Barcelona got him for just 71k. Definitely worth picking up him if you can, although he might be a regen actually, having a look at the years there. I'm not too sure if 2018 is the year in the game or 2017 is when it comes to South America and Brazil. Then you've got Zagadou, currently at Spurs, worth £40 million. He was a PSG player, signed by Dortmund on a free, and then Spurs got him for just under 20 million, so he's probably going to set you back about that much anyway. Man City, you've got Antonio Grilli, a central midfielder, £30.5 million for him, but signed after he broke into the Fiorentina first team on a regular basis. Sami Olivier, currently at Liverpool, from Nantes, so maybe you could pick him up as well. He looks like he's quite young. Then you've got Jadon Sancho, who everybody should be familiar with, given that Dortmund snapped him from Man City so cheaply in the summer. He did move to West Brom for under £30 million, but that's a sign that you can probably get him quite cheaply as well if you get in there early. Reece Oxford is another player you should all be familiar with, still at West Ham, worth £32 million in this game. Nav Danjal, currently 20 years old, so he's actually our first region, I think, from Delhi in India, so you can see that some decent players might be coming out of India this year. Who else have we got here? We just had a look at Delhi. I think I've lost my place, have I? Danjal, sorry. Rutger Wolves, currently at Juventus, 20 years old. You can see at Genk at the moment, and is a decent player for Juventus, so he might be worth having a little look at. You've also got Sayer from Chelsea, £26.5 million at 21 years old. Bon Giovanni from Monaco there. Trent Alexander-Arnold, we're all familiar with, still at Liverpool right now, but does seem to develop. Matthias de Ligt, again, another player we should all be quite familiar with. Eli Yuan, 23 years old, 23 million. I'm just having a look at some of the older players here. Malang Sarr, currently at Everton, 22 million, and Jordi Mbula at Monaco. I'm not going to click on these now because I want you to be able to just pause the screen, and if you see a player in these positions here that fits your team you want to have a better look at, you'd be better off scouting him in your game, because obviously the current ability and potential ability changes game by game, so it won't be exactly the same, but it's a good indicator if these players have hit 40 million that they're in that upper echelon of potential ability, and if you nurture them right you will be able to develop a top quality player. So do pause it if there are players that you think 5 years ago, because imagine you'll be signing these 5 years in the past, so if they're worth £20 million now, you probably could have got them for 5 or 6 million when the game first started. Other players like Reece Nelson you should be familiar with from previous Football Managers, currently at Arsenal still, which is where he starts the game. We've got a Chinese player here, but he is a regen. You should check the ages on the right hand side too. I probably should have filtered out people that were 18 and 19, but there you go. We've got James Boothby, currently at Huddersfield. Might be worth picking up if you've got a problem with homegrown quotas in the Champions League. You might want to pick up a few of these players like Blaine Tully or Darnell Logie. You can definitely pick them up reasonably cheaply if you get in there early. You've also got Ben Woodburn here from Liverpool, who has moved to Brighton. Martin Odegaard, currently still at Real Madrid. He probably wouldn't cost you too much now. I imagine the game still rates him quite highly. I'm just looking for any familiar faces down here. There's a Dembele there, but it's not one of the major ones. Who else is still in here that looks familiar? Because there's not too many of the current well-known Wonderkids. You got Phil Foden there, who's quite familiar, quite famous after the World Cup win for the England youth sides this year. A couple of other Man City players here as well. I really don't recognise many of these names, so it looks like you really are going to have to dig out your new players. Berghuis, player that I am familiar with, 19 years old at the moment. He might actually be a regen there, 19 years old. Maybe it's a different Berghuis. Have a quick look. It is a different Berghuis, so it's Borghuis, that's probably why. But I think that's probably about as far down as I go, because you're getting into the non-value territory here at this point at £2 million or so. But that is the list of the players that in this save have developed into the biggest stars. You can see the top ones here at the page. Definitely worth picking up if you can for quite cheap prices. I hope this was useful. Let me know in the comments if there are other things you'd like me to take a look at quite similar to this, because I can just run forward in the game, and then when the game's fully released and you buy it, you know who the Wonderkids are, maybe who the best transfer listed players are, or the free agents. Let me know if you're interested in more stuff like this. At the moment, the in-game editor and full editor for the game haven't been released, so experiments will start when the full game is released in a few days' time. But for now, we'll make do with these kind of videos as and when I get ideas for what we can take a look at. Drop a like on the video if you think you will sign one of these players, and let me know in the comments which one you will sign. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. You can also follow me on Twitter for any sort of updates on what I'm doing in my saves and with the channel. But until next time, see ya!